afternoon. I'm not going to reconstruct locatives because they have been reconstructed. There are 3 locatives which are well known to everyone. So what I will do is a survey of locatives, and then I'll provide an analysis at the end. So 3 locatives have been identified. They are mu, that pa, ku, and mu, and they belong to class 16, 17, and 18. So these locatives normally attach to a non-locative noun, and they precede the noun class prefix and the following examples. In example 1, we have a language where there is no prefix, no augment. But in example 2, we have a locative in a language where there is an augment. So the locative takes the place of an augment and deletes an augment in most cases. I'm saying in most cases because in some classes, like class 5, the augment is not deleted. Beside the 3 locatives, some other data shows that there is locative 25E, which in most cases is used with place names. They appear, the locatives, the 4 locatives, now I'm talking about 4 locatives, they appear in different forms. You can see this, there's pa, po, pe, ha, fa, wa for class 16, and then you have ku, kwa, kwe, ka, ke, ki, and so on for class 17. And then you have mu or me, and mo, and me, and ho for class 18, and e, which can also be a for class 25. Of course, we'll come back to this class because some people classify it as 25, others are 23, others are 24. So I adopt a comparative method. This means that I'm going to consider languages from all parts across Bantu, if I can put it like this. So let me look at each of these languages, these locatives, one by one. I begin with the locative pa of class 16. This pa appears almost in all the parts of Bantu languages, of course not to the same extent. For example, in Eastern Bantu, it is in the north, it is not very common, but I found examples from Swahili in the 4 and the 1 from Hehe. But in the southern part of Eastern Bantu, I think they are very common. I have provided 2 examples, one from Chewa, another from Babiha in 6 and 7. In Central, it is common. It is very common. I will not go through all the examples. There are examples in 8, in 9, and in Southern Bantu, this is not very common, but we find the lolix of some expressions, like in number 10, in Xhosa, in Zulu, in Ndebele, and Swati. I gave some examples, but these lolix can be found in other languages. In Northwestern, I think there are not many, but still, you can still find some cases of locative 16 in the form of pa or pe. This is what you have in number 13. So in short, we find this almost in all parts of Bantu, but we don't find them to the same extent. Then it appears in the form of ha. This is predominantly found in the Great Lakes regions, especially in zone J, but you find it as well in other zones. So there are so many cases. You have these in number 14. I just gave an example. You can find them in other languages. In the Central Bantu, they are also there. You can find her. You have an example in Rwanda, that is L53. You have it in Ngagela, in K, Subia, K42, Nyanga, D, 35 and 5, and Mbala. In Southern Bantu, I don't think it is there, it is not active, but you still find some relics. You have the word Haufi, I'm sure this is class 16, or Hagari in Chopi and Soto. In northwestern, of course it's not very common, but like in other cases we will find some words where you can identify class 16 in the form of Ha. So these are examples like Nibuja, Basar, and Ding. Locative 16 has other forms which are found in Bantu, but these are not spread. They are not spread across Bantu. For example, we have Va, which you have examples in 21. In Chwabo, you have an example in 22. In Kamba, we have more examples like in Chaga, Tsogo, and Fan. Locative Wa, it is found in some other places, like in the southern east, like Makua, Luganda, and Boko. These are examples 23 and 24. And then it appears in the form of Fa, and this I think in southern Bantu. Examples have been identified from Tswana, Chivenda, Sisoto, and Lozi. Those are examples 26, 27, and 28. It also appears in the form of A, and some examples have been found. Of course, there are not as many as we find in for M or for Mu or for Ku or E, but they are there. So you have examples, a few examples in 29 from different languages, but of course not as common as all the others. Now I move on to class 17, Ku. I think Ku is the most common, it's very common. In Eastern, I think you will find it in almost all languages, in Eastern Bantu. In Central Bantu, it is there, but I'm not sure if it is as common as it is in Eastern Bantu. And maybe in the South, that is where it is less common. I think it's only found in some expressions. It is not productive in that zone. In Southern, in Northwestern, again, I would say it is not there, it's not common, but still you can find a few examples. These have been taken from Gregoire in 42. Then there are some other forms of class 17, which I've introduced at the beginning. I will not analyze all of them, but you can look at some of them. Like Kwa, it is well known that it is found in most cases in Eastern Africa, in Eastern Bantu, and you have examples from 43 to 46, and its meaning is at the place of, and it is most of the time used in front of names of people. But in Southern Bantu, there are a few cases which are found. In this case, it is placed in front of the names of places. Locative O is also found in different places, but to a very little extent. It is not very common. I've been able to find some examples. In Zulu it is used, but it's not as common as others. You find it in Fang, A75. You find it in Makua, in example 51, and Chwap as well, 52. And an example has been found in Lundu. For locatives Ko, Bu, or Go, I think there are also the reflexes of Ku, and a few examples could be found. Okay, these are illustrated in 54 up to 57. Locative, as it has been reconstructed, it is also found in many languages. In Eastern Bantu, it is there. It can be found in many languages. In the Central, yes, but maybe not to the same extent. In Southern Bantu, I think it's very limited. You can only find them in very few cases, in limited cases. There are some discussions, maybe if it is there, like in 65, you could find one or two words in the language. In Western Bantu, I would say it isn't, unless there are some other examples, but I could only find these examples that have been identified in Gregoire. I didn't find any other example. Now I'll move on to class 25, which has not been much discussed and has not, according to Mason, maybe it cannot be reconstructed as locative, but given that you can find data from different zones, one would be attempted to say that this can be reconstructed as Proto-Bantu. This one is normally used in front of names of places, as I have said in the beginning. You have example in 67. You have almost the same, like if someone says Kigali, then you say Ikigali, you mean at Kigali. The same for 68, you have A, you will say Kampala, and then you say a Kampala at Kampala. Maybe what is interesting here is not that it is only attached to names of places. You can also find it attached to common names, when in some cases it replaces the augment. And in these particular cases, in 69 and 70, one might be tempted, when you look at the word, you would think it is an augment. The only way to know that it is a locative is to use the word in a sentence, and you see the kind of agreement it is going to trigger. Normally here, it will trigger class 16 instead of 5 or any other class where you would expect it to agree. And you find it in expressions about locations, and this is what we have in 17, like behind, like up, down, and over, something like that. In Southern Bantu, it appears, I don't know if it is the same element, but I'm tempted to say it's the same element. It appears in the form of A, and when you look at the way it is used, it has exactly the same interpretation, the same meaning as E that we find in other zones. So this is what you see in 72, 73, 74, and 75. But something to note here is that sometimes it occurs with the suffix, like in 72 and 73, and other times the suffix does not appear, like in 74 and 75. Again, like in the Eastern Bantu, it appears in expressions like down, up, above, over, and so on. In Western Bantu, this has also been identified. You can see this in 78 and 79. Again, still referring to like positions like up, down, over, and so on. You cannot talk about locatives without talking about clitics, because for me I find locatives are other forms of clitics. There are other forms of locatives, as I will see in my short analysis I'm providing at the end. Clitics are locatives, and most of them appear in the form of, they end in the vowel O. You see this in example 80. The same in 81, the same in 82, and they are different from different languages, but they have the same form. Like in 80, you have Ruhaya in Eastern Zone. In 81, it is also Eastern Zone, but in 82, it is far away from that zone, but it has the same form, the same shape. And normally, it is the last element in the verb. That's why we are tempted to say that it is a clitic. But surprisingly, I have seen a case where it is not the last element. Like in 83, In Runyoro, it is followed by another suffix. This is unusual as far as the position is concerned, because it's like the last element. Again, in 84, it does not criticize onto the verb, but it's like it comes after noun. But in this case, I discussed with Tom. I told him that this behaves here in this case like any other pronoun. Maybe I'll come back to this in this position, because we expect it to attach to a verb, but in this case it's something different. But I have identified a similar case in 85 in Yao, which does not attach to the verb but follows a noun. In 84, this is a Kinyarwanda example. In 84, it would be interpreted as you can see in the translation. Okay? If you say kukibuga ho harakonje, it means on the pride ground there it is cold. It's like the literal translation, but the actual meaning is what you have in the translation. It would mean something like, as for the pride ground, it is cold there. So I was thinking that maybe the same interpretation would be found in the example in 83, 85, but I'm not sure because I don't know the language. Anyone who knows the language will tell us if the same meaning is there. What I show in 86 is that it does not always appear in the form I have mentioned, where it ends in the vowel O, because in 86, as well as in 87, it appears in the same form as the locative. To end up with this, the locative critic function primarily as a resumptive pronoun, or simply maybe to function as a pronoun but replacing a locative expression like in 88. I think if you have something like in the village there, he arrived there. So this means that mu is replacing the place. The same for the example in 89, the Ngoboka, something which is interpreted as I knocked or nicked. So this is like a pronominal. So in my short analysis, I'm not, as I said, I'm not reconstructing because this has been reconstructed, but you can see that pa is realized as ha in many zones. We would say maybe this is the reflex, or we should say that pa changed from pa to ha. And you have one example here. You can look at this table. You see exactly that pa in most of northeastern Bantu, especially in zone J, where you have pa, you will have exactly ha. So you have those examples in the table, like pit, which would be hit, like pu, which is who, and so on and so on. So it's like there is some consistency in this data. Where you have pa, you have ha. I have identified also a cases in 90, like in this language of Kinyarwanda, because we don't have pa, even in other lexical words. Sometimes if you don't have ha, you might have another element which is close to it. So in 90 you have pe, instead of being realized that pe, you would have the palatal, like sha. You have the word piga, Proto-Bantu, and then in Rwanda it is shiga, or you have pida, which is the shira, purse in English. Or instead of having ha, you would have the fricative f in the second example, and it is illustrated in you see fu, which means stomach, okay? But in Proto-Bantu it would be pu, and then you have pujo, which is furo in Kinyarwanda. You have puko, which is fuka, meaning bag in Kinyarwanda. So I have tried to just find correspondence between these two locatives, and we would find them even if they are not found in the same amount, but at least you could identify some cases. So for example, in Eastern, you would find an example either in pa or in ha. In Southern, there is still one. There's one in ha, with ha, and one with pa. In Central, you have the cases like Bantu, where you have the corresponding one Hanu. And Western, you have a few. I said there are a few cases, but they should still reflect the locative form. I have another table of cognates which shows the real correspondence between the locative ha and pa. It means where we don't have pa, we'll have ha. Like this, the word near, in some cases you find it with ha, like hafi, like haufi, like kehi. And the word inside, you would find it in Eastern, Southern, and Central. The same for here and outside. So the only problem I had is finding examples in the Western zone. Maybe there are data, or because I don't have the data, there could be some expressions corresponding to these locatives. So then I would suggest that this locative pa or ha or a, because I have identified also other examples where it is realized not as pa or ha, but as a. So you see examples in 90, 92, and 93. And you can see these examples come from different zones. Although I didn't find in all the zones, but at least you could find in different zones. Like one example from A, two examples from A, one from E, one from C, and one from J. So from these examples, I'm proposing that, or it can be assumed that there has been change from per to her to a by the process of dropping. I would say the process of dropping. And from the presentation that took place before, I would also think that there was zero, maybe there is 0p, or there is dropping of p in these examples. And this can be supported by one example I found. I think this is Herero, when you have Anje, which could correspond to Bantu Panje, and you would have something like Pano, which in some languages, like in Eastern, it would be Hano. So this is what you have in 94. And I suspect that dropping, in this case, like 94, if you have Ano, I thought that dropping Ha may be supported by the fact that in Eastern Bantu, some languages have Hapa, while others have Apa, both of which means here. So I suppose that maybe Pa has been dropped in some cases. Okay, the other forms, I think I'm not going to say much about them, but I would also think that there has been change from Pa to Ha, and then to Va, and then the dropping of the consonant. For locative ku, I would only try to provide a short analysis of kwa. As I said in the beginning, kwa is the locative that attaches to proper nouns of persons. In some cases, it is attached in front of nouns of places. I have suggested that kwa is the result of ku plus a, which is an associative. And this would mean at the place of x. Okay, now we have cases of, if you go to the next page, the cases of ku realized as ko and o. In some cases, as I have shown here, I would also suggest that there is a zero car, or that car has been dropped. In some cases, to result in O only, and this has been found in many cases. The last one I will talk about is E and A. For me, I find that this is the same element which has changed. I would even wonder which one changed, whether it was A or E, because if you look at the word in table 5, the word bedi, if you look at different languages, like this word means in the front of, in some cases it appears as imbere, in Uganda, in Rwanda it is imbere, in Kirundi imbere, because these are very similar languages. In Zulu it is entla, in Swati embili, in Ndebele these are similar languages, it is imbidi, which is almost the same. Then some cases have been identified in Bankumi, in Bubi, Buja, and Basan. So I would say that the similarity of this is not mere coincidence. This can reveal that these words are cognates and they refer to the same locative of class 25. I have also identified cases which are worth of attention. In these cases, you have, it's like double locative. Coupe has identified a few cases in Rwanda. You see the expression in 95. These expressions seem to have two locatives. I mean class 16 and class 25, or 24 as some people have classified this. So if you have this, you would analyze it as ha and a, and then two locatives. This is Kinyarwanda, and then I try to extend this analysis to the data I have found in Kitonga, like Ekule. Of course, I'm not sure 100%, but I see that there are two locatives, 25, which is the opposite of what I have found about Kinyarwanda, because here I begin with 25 and then 27. In 96, 25, 17, and then the next example I have 25, 16. The two examples show 25 and 16 in the order which has been reversed compared to what you have in Kinyarwanda. So difference in meaning, I'm going to look at 97. The difference in meaning between the examples in 97 can support the analysis I have proposed for 95 and 96. I have came across these examples where you have kweba sinde, something like hima, kweba sinde. This means stand near the boys. And then you have suna, kubasinde, jump on the boys. And this difference needs to be explained by saying that in the second example we have the normal ku, and if there is a vowel, I suppose it has been deleted by the presence of a locative. But with kwe, I think that there is class 17. There's class 17, which is followed by class 25. So it can be analyzed as ku 17 and a 25, which gives kwe. And this could be also extended to a problematic, I call this problematic, locatives he, kwe, mwe, found in Zigula, because in Gregoire she wonders what has happened. Why do you have the form of kwe and not ku? And I suspect this is also class 16 plus 25, or 17 plus 25, 18 plus 25. And I think this is explained by the examples in 99. Because in 99, one would think that A is the result of assimilation. But you find that there is kwe and then it is followed by another vowel in 99. So it is assumed that there is locative ku and locative a, which is followed by nogment. So I would conclude that it is possible to have two locatives, and this explains the appearance of kwe, mwe, and he. And if you have kwe instead of ke, this is the result of glide formation, as is the case in many Bantu languages. As for the critics, I would assume they are also from the Proto-Bantu locatives pa, ku, and mu, because in some cases they are identical with the locative, in some other cases they bear the vowel o. I'm treating these as I said, I would treat these as pronouns. And this can be seen in the next table. Please go to the next table. I want to establish a parallel between locative critics and pronouns, and I've based on Rwanda, and I thought this could be extended to other languages like Ifwe, which I observed has the same critics. So you have two parts in that table. The first one is showing locatives. I'm assuming that the critic ho is the locative ha plus that pronoun o, which would mean there. For class 17, I would put a star because we don't have ko in Rwanda, but we have it in other languages like Kirundi. And I assume also that this is ku plus the pronoun o. In 18, we have the same, we have the locative mu plus the pronoun o. In 19, we have the locative e plus o. All these mean there, like pronouns. Now, the parallel between these is that for nouns, you would take the suffix and add that o, which I'm saying it's a pronoun, and you get wo. If you have va plus o, you get wo, and this means them. If you have like class 7 is ki plus that o, you get ko, cho. This is palatalization. This means it in class 7. Then we would have something like zo, class 10. This is z plus the pronoun, and this makes zo, them, like cows. Then if I take the example of class 11, I would have ru of class 11 plus the pronoun, and this means go with the gliding, and then this means it. So briefly, this is the summary. I call it a summary, not maybe a conclusion. Locatives, pa, ku, and mu, they appear in various zones and forms, but all the forms constitute evidence of the existence of Proto-Bantu locatives. These are not my ideas, these have been constructed before. They are productive in all Bantu zones, but the remnants that are found in almost across Bantu point to the existence at an earlier stage of locatives in those zones. So they can be interpreted as retention, because as I have shown in some languages, you have only these expressions referring to here, up, down, but this is an indication that these have been retained. Despite being one morpheme, locative critics are morphologically complex. It means they have a locative plus a personal pronoun. Locative class 25 is not productive in many zones, but its distribution in many areas, including in Northwest, is an indication that there has been a Proto-Bantu locative in. I end this with a note. There is a tendency for some people to drop the locative. Like in languages in Uganda, they don't have locatives. In my language in Rwanda, people are tending to drop it before names of places, and the government is teaching people to use it in front of names of places. But I'm wondering, because in one presentation people say that one element may be not necessary, people can do without it. I'm wondering, shall we at a certain time do away with locatives? Thank you.
No.
Yes, please. I have a remark with respect to grammaticalization and actually then a concrete reconstruction for Proto-Bantu. Well, it's well known that typologically non-finite markers develop from prepositions, and I think even Meinhof possibly proposed that already, that class 15 actually is etymologically derived from class 18. So like in English, the infinitive marker is a locative from 17, yeah. From a locative preposition. So one question would be, should we really reconstruct an infinitive marker class 15, but rather say it's a late grammaticalization from a locative prefix? And if one looks at class 25, your remnant reflexes and the fact that there's an infinitive marker, is it the same vowel, Philo?
The infinitive is as low as a class 5. Yeah.
So it's not the same vowel. Okay, so then that wouldn't work unless there was something going on. But of course, if there was a relation, then even in this case, one would wonder whether actually the class 25 is an older or even the older locative marker which was replaced somehow.
But there is a difference in vowel. There is a difference in vowel.
The class 5 is the first degree vowel, right?
5, okay. I thought you said 17 and 15.
5,
No.
okay, are you referring to 5? Vowel?
No, I was just, I didn't remember the vowel quality of this marker, which is widely used as an infinitive marker in zone C and etc. So if that was the same, that would be actually possibly another case where originally class 25 was an old locative marker actually, developing in many cases to an infinitive marker, and then you only have scanty reflexes of. Yeah, well anyway, so...
25 has the same agreement as class 9, right?
Sorry?
9?
9, doesn't it?
Or 5?
No, it doesn't have the agreement of class 5.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't ever take lead, it would take a Y.
It doesn't agree, plus 25.
To the extent that you can get agreement, it would be
You get your...
to 9.
It looks like 9.
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, I
There are
think
some
in
cool
terms of
downs.
Proto, at least 17
Yeah.
and 15, I think that should
Yeah.
be really...
Well, except that once you get out of Bantu, there's coups all over the place. We do have a
As
few
what?
nouns.
As infinitive markers?
No, as nouns. On nouns.
Yeah, but of course, but
So why would we think of the, what is it, leg or arm or something, Ngoboko? Would that be a locative?
yes?
No.
No,
On the hand?
Wind and moonshine are not likely to be
Yeah.
an innovation.
That's what I'm saying.
No, but instead of positing class infinitive is 15 like the
Yes,
word
that
Oh,
for
was the point.
arms or ears, and then the
Or it's
locative
just a
is
numbering
somewhere else,
question.
then the locative would be same as infinitive, and the noun one would be another one. I mean,
It's not just it's not the numbering question, it's a question of unilateral grammaticalization change from a locative marker to an infinitive marker.
yes,
And if that grammaticalization change happened in Bantu, there is no reason to reconstruct it, so it's not just a...
Yes,
Then-
there is still a reason for the other words
yes,
that are reconstructed. Ear, arm, leg, knee, voice, and moonshine.
Yeah, but,
And
of course they are locatives and not infinitives.
No. Moonshine is not a locative. Knee is not a locative.
Well, in Niger Congo there is a coup class, and it's not only locative, so it's still, it might be more complex. I mean,
They're two separate
That's what I
classes.
said.
Exactly.
That's what I
Who knows?
said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another one is different from the locative.
No, but the infinitive, what Tom is saying is the infinitive one comes from the locative.
Yes, that's...
And then the other one is
How about
15.
those are the words which have nothing to do with the infinitive? Like those parts of the body, like the leg, like the arm.
And in languages where you find reflexes of this Niger Congo coup class, like in Atlantic, it's never the infinitive class. So that's why I say it should have been two different infinitive locative on the one hand, and the noun one on the other hand. So not very different from we have just the front from this bottom. So
Yeah, but traditionally in Bantu the infinitive is given as class 15,
yeah, I know,
not
I know.
as class 17.
That may be revised.
That was
Well, it's
But-
probably because it gets attached to a stem
Yes.
and not to a word.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably why people did that, I guess.
But
Because they're
semantics is not that's not a criterion
Sure.
to distinguish a separate noun class in Bantu. So is that's the only reason why we have two? But I mean that's not as such for other classes that we don't use that as a criterion to distinguish a separate class. Semantics only. You have form, you have agreement, and you have a plural formation.
There is also some, I agree with the locatives, they have almost, I think in all languages, they have very particular syntactic behavior, morphosyntactic, and how they can combine and so on. So, and that is also, I mean, you could say that the infinitive is sort of a development out of that locative thing. That we still need two coups because we have regular nouns with a coup.
Yes.
So, and
But
then we have,
reconstructing class 15 as an infinitive class, this is the point, might be revised to say the infinitive meaning
yeah,
of
but
what we
but
call
then
15
what
comes
do
out
you-
of
what do you
18
do-
and is a
what
late
do you do
revision.
with state which has all the infinitives there plus another 6 words. Then you take out all the infinitives because they are infinitives, and you are left with a few
Yes.
names of rivers and they are class by themselves. But then the infinitives can have locative in front of them. And in Yakuza, even you have the 2 coups stacked up.
Yes, that's
But
the different layers of grammatical
Yeah,
identity.
so you,
That's,
yeah, I mean, that's
how language
in
is
a historical
built.
sense, but in a descriptive
Because it's when did the
No, it's got, it was
become
just
an
a point.
infinitive?
Don't think that it's-
You know,
we stick with mice and class.
Yeah, when did
That's not a problem.
It's for BNR next year.
This is a more general question, but following up on Tom's, do anyone have a sense of when at what stage the locative classes became classes? You know, proper full agreement classes? Is that, I've wondered how late or early that was. I don't know if anyone in the room has an opinion on that. I mean, it's agreed they're a Bantu-ish innovation, right? That's not,
Except we have it in our area.
I know we have these traces
But
of the
they're-
Bantuid,
Well,
yeah.
it's
There are
not
some
even traced
Atlantic too. There are
That look like these.
some of them.
Okay. So
Well,
they
class
could be even
16
older.
is
Yeah.
in Noni, you know, it's fall.
Yeah.
You know,
Boom
but
class
what's-
or locatives.
So is that because Williams said in Niger Congo that this was a Bantu innovation, but I don't know what level, and I just don't know if there's consensus there or if this is a Bantu. Anyone? I just didn't know if anyone in the room has. Yeah.
I have no idea about
Yeah.
when it started.
No, I know. I just wondered. Okay. No one.
There are some in the
Just a question. When most of your examples here show one of these or 4 prefix to a noun, but there are 3 examples where just prefix to a stem. In Swahili it's kuzimu, Hades, it's kushoto, it's kusini, where there's no other prefix visible. Maybe consider things like that? I'm just asking.
It's Bantu.
actually,
Are you saying ikuzimu? I would assume that maybe there are 2 locatives.
you may like Shaban Robert wrote a novel Kusanikika, where ku, the prefix ku, is not an infinitive, but this means utopia. This means the country that is imagined. So it sounds like an infinitive, but it is not. It is a place. It's a place name with a prefix ku. So he could make a noun without a double prefix, not an infinitive, meaning a place. So even in Swahili, that is still possible. But
Of course, there are also cases where we use class 14 to refer to, I mean in my language in Rwanda, when 14 would use to form place names. Like in Europe, you say Burai, so you add Gu. In the West, Burenjerazuba, so these are the exceptions, I think.
It's it's a question of curiosity. But I was wondering this 24, 25. What's the history of it? Why not 19? Okay.
24 and 25,
24,
right? This is asking
Oh,
him.
I don't know, I think because it was pushed, I don't know, because it was pushed, because they added in, augmentative classes, which are found in some, in a very few languages, like Luya, Venda, and so on. So for some reason, the Guga, so for some reason they added, and then they pushed the poor locative class.
21.
No, but and the 19, the
19.
19, why not 19 and 20?
Well, 19, that's a class.
That's a different, that's.
Which one?
It's very widespread in the West, and even a little bit in the East.
In Luganda.
In other languages, Southern.
That's the P.
Yeah, okay. And 20,
Where did they come from, those?
these are.
It looks like the
I don't
agreements
know
of
who
3
did
and
that,
6.
it must be somebody to interview, and I'm not responsible.
That's where I think some of it is like.
But if 21 is so rare, why adjective has been
Other,
restricted?
meaning elsewhere. You know, it's just an agreement with like place with others, right?
Where Maho must discuss.
Maho must discuss these.
Look it
These-
up in Maho.
That goes on the
Maho's
staff.
pretty good about going through the minor, right? You have a copy?
Do you have any idea on this locative Ni, which is in Swahili, but also in Southern Bantu and some places in between?
Sorry?
In Swahili Ni suffix, Nyumba Ni, which is also all over South Africa, in Nguni and Sotho-Tswana,
Southern East.
and then some languages between Swahili and Zulu, like Makua and Shwabo. Do you have any idea about how that fits in?
How it came?
Uh-huh.
You mean the prefix?
The suffix.
The suffix, sorry, the suffix.
That's a suffixal form of move.
Yeah, there's a move relationship there.
Yeah.
This is move.
Yeah.
But in your Chaga example of number 5, you made a slight mistake in interpretation. We say patehu outside, right? But pa is not a prefix, it's part of the stem. The stem is pata. That means a grassy place in front of a compound, pata, plus the ihu suffix, which means on in Chaga.
Number 5.
From Gudu, from Common Bantu Gudu.
Number 5.
Yeah, number 5. Pa tehu, it doesn't split pa tehu, it splits pata ihu. So there's a suffix, there's no prefix. Pata is a stem. Pata is a stem. It means grassy place in front of a compound. So that's why pata. So on the grassy place in front of the compound, that means outside. So it's that's another suffix. And we have ini and we have ihu in Chaga. In Chaga you have it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.